Welcome back to Scandalous Truths, the channel where we dive into the most jaw-dropping, thought-provoking, and scandalous stories you've ever heard. Before we get into today's story, we have a quick favor to ask. Our community is growing every day, and we're on a mission to reach 1,000 subscribers. If you enjoy stories like this one, please take a moment to like this video and hit that subscribe button. It's free. It helps us out more than you know, and you'll never miss another scandalous tale. Now, let me ask you something. What would you do if the person you trusted most hit you with a request that turned your world upside down? That's exactly what happened to the man in today's story when his wife asked for something that would test the very foundation of their marriage. But what started as a shocking request led to an even more surprising outcome, one that no one saw coming. Let's dive in. I always believed my marriage was unshakable. Sure, we had our ups and downs, who doesn't? But we had trust, loyalty, and years of shared memories. Or so I thought. Then one evening, she hit me with a sentence that flipped my entire world upside down. We were sitting at the kitchen table, finishing dinner, when she said, "I want to try an open marriage." I froze. At first, I thought she was joking, but the look in her eyes told me otherwise. She wasn't smiling. Her hands were fidgeting with her coffee mug, and she couldn't meet my gaze. I felt a sharp pang of fear, followed by confusion. Wasn't I enough? Hadn't I done everything right? I couldn't bring myself to ask the obvious question, had she already found someone else? She started talking about how it wasn't about me. She said she loved me and always would, but she needed something more. She talked about freedom, excitement, and keeping things fresh. I barely heard her. My mind was stuck on one thought. Our marriage is over, isn't it? I didn't argue. I didn't even ask why. Instead, I asked one simple question. Are you sure this is what you want? She looked up at me, her eyes pleading, and nodded. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying her words over and over. Every insecurity I'd ever had came rushing to the surface. Was I boring? Had I let her down in some way? Or worse, had she been waiting for the right moment to tell me she'd found someone else? Her first date was a week later. Watching her get ready felt surreal. She stood in front of the mirror, trying on outfit after outfit, her excitement almost palpable. I hadn't seen her this giddy in years, and that realization hit me like a punch to the gut. That spark? It wasn't for me anymore. As she walked out the door, she smiled and said, "Don't wait up." And just like that, she was gone. I tried to distract myself with TV, but every show felt dull. I picked up my phone, but scrolling through social media only reminded me of the life I thought we had. I glanced at the clock every 5 minutes, wondering where she was and who she was with. Was she laughing? Smiling? Kissing someone else? The thought made my stomach churn. She came home after midnight. I was still awake, sitting in the living room. When she walked in, she looked different. Happier. Lighter. She kissed me on the cheek and whispered, "Thank you for understanding," before heading upstairs. I sat there, staring at the empty space where she just stood, and realized I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't just sit here, waiting for her to come back every time. The next morning, I made a decision. If she was going to explore, then so would I. I downloaded a dating app, half out of curiosity and half out of spite. At first, it felt strange. The last time I'd been on a date, people still met at coffee shops and bars, not with swipes and messages. But after a few awkward chats, I met someone who changed everything. Her name was Ava. Ava was unlike anyone I'd ever met. She wasn't just looking for a fling. She wanted a real connection. She asked me questions about my life, my dreams, even my childhood. And when I talked, she actually listened. For the first time in years, I felt seen. Important. Our first date was at a little coffee shop downtown. I was nervous, but the moment she smiled at me, I forgot all about my anxiety. We spent hours talking about everything and nothing. She laughed at my jokes, even the bad ones, and when the night ended, I realized I hadn't thought about my wife once. Back at home, things were complicated. My wife was seeing someone regularly. She tried to play it off as casual, but I could tell there was more to it. One evening, after dinner, she sat me down and said, "I think I might love him." Her words hit me like a freight train. I thought I'd feel angry or hurt. But instead, all I felt was relief. For the first time, I realized I didn't care. Not like I used to. I looked her in the eye and said, "I'm happy for you." And I meant it. A few days later, I told her about Ava. She looked surprised, then hurt. She said, "I didn't think we'd actually replace each other." I couldn't help but laugh. "Isn't that what you've been doing?" I asked. She didn't have an answer. From that moment on, things shifted. She spent more time with her new partner, and I spent more time with Ava. The distance between us grew wider, but it no longer felt like a loss. It felt like a necessary change. One night, Ava asked me, "Do you think your marriage can survive this?" I hesitated before answering. "I don't know," I admitted. "But I'm starting to think maybe it's not supposed to." In the weeks that followed, the cracks in our marriage became impossible to ignore. The intimacy, the connection, the partnership, it was all gone. We were two people living separate lives under the same roof. Eventually, we had the conversation we'd both been avoiding. She told me she wanted to pursue her new relationship full-time. And me? I realized I didn't need her anymore. I found someone who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. In the end, her request for an open marriage didn't destroy us, it revealed the truth about what we'd become. We were two people clinging to a past that no longer existed. She learned that freedom comes with consequences, and I learned that love should never feel like a compromise. Sometimes, the hardest decisions lead to the clearest paths. Letting go isn't easy, but it's often the only way to make space for something new. When I walked away from that chapter of my life, I wasn't angry or sad. I was ready. And Ava? She wasn't just a rebound, she was a wake-up call. She reminded me of what it felt like to be truly valued, to be truly loved. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I'm excited to find out. Closing thought. Have you ever faced a moment that changed everything you thought you knew? Share your story in the comments. And don't forget, sometimes, the unexpected outcome is exactly what we need.